Hello and welcome to the 49ers Plus podcast. I'm Al Moriello, and this is your source for the most objective 49ers discussion and analysis. And today we're going to be talking about the 49ers' big win at Seattle last night on Prime Video. We're going to recap the game. We're going to give Pro Football Focus grades, talking about how yet another opening drive ends in a field goal, some red zone woes. The Niners get up big early again. Young players who stepped up big. The defense not really blitzing, but generating some QB pressures. Offense plays to its old identity, which is a good thing. Special teams stuff again. We're going to ask if San Francisco finally learned to close out a game, and takeaways from the much needed win. It's going to be all Niners today, so let's get right into it. So a hairy game, right? For all of us that watched, looked good early, got hairy and anxious late until San Francisco finally did, in some ways, and we're going to get to it, close the door on Seattle for a 36-24 victory. Let's start off with grades per Pro Football Focus. Top 5 on offense: right guard Dominic Puny, running back Jordan Mason, who was only in for 18 plays before he had to leave with a shoulder injury, George Kittle and his 2 touchdowns, Deebo Samuel and his 1 touchdown, Brock Purdy and his 3 touchdowns. Bottom 3, right tackle Colton McKivitz, wide receiver Chris Conley, and Spencer Burford, both in sparse action. Top 5 on defense. So newcomer, or at least second game being played, undrafted rookie free agent Evan Anderson in 13 snaps. Malik Mustafa with an interception on 20 snaps before he left with an ankle injury. Safety George Odom, cornerback Renardo Green, and Nick Bosa. Bottom 3 on D, surprisingly on this list, Deommodore Lenoir, who I think a lot of us felt had a pretty good game, Kevin Givens, and linebacker D. Winters with 12 snaps. So I mentioned it at the top. First drive, stalls in the red zone. So in terms of making an offensive statement from Shanahan and Purdy, at least initially, it did not happen. Now, this was a lengthy drive that started at the San Francisco 3, courtesy of the interception by Malik Mustafa after the pick goes out of bounds at the 3. So that's where the Niners start their first drive. They go from their own 3 all the way down to the Seattle 7 and have to settle for a field goal. Of their 4 scores in the first half, 3 of them were field goals. They were 0 for 2 in the red zone in the first half. Not the way that Shanahan wanted, or Brock, or anybody on offense wanted to draw up or execute the offense in the red zone early, especially when you're coming out and you have such a disheartening takeaway. If you're a Seahawk player or coach, Geno Smith sailing a pass to Tyler Lockett, Renardo Green in coverage, Malik Mustafa comes up with the interception. And then for San Francisco to march all the way down the field, but to gain back some measure of confidence, if you're Seattle, by holding San Francisco just to a field goal attempt. So again, 3 of 4 scores were field goals in the first half, 0 for 2 in the red zone. San Francisco, even with that, they were up big early, double digits plus, which becomes an uh-oh moment for all of us, fans, and I guess otherwise. Maybe if you're not a Seahawk fan, you're thinking, oh, we're down 13-0, 16-0. We have San Francisco right where we want them, or we have San Francisco right where they've been and have not been able to really extend the lead or close out a team or put a foot on the throat, all that stuff. And it came into fruition quite a bit in the second half. We're going to get there, but up 16-0 and up 16-3 at the half. And kudos to Nick Sorensen and the defense. That final Seattle drive took them inside the 10 but they were able to hold up and force a Jason Myers field goal, which is good for me because I had him in fantasy. Overall, I think he only had 6 points, so that wasn't really a great night, but I will take it if that meant a San Francisco win. And I don't want to gloss over this whole, for those of you who watched the last podcast, me taking the Seahawks 27-24. Part of it was, like I mentioned, the PTSD of going up to Seattle, even though they've won there the last 2 years in or during night games, excuse me. But I was also playing into my superstition of picking Seattle the previous 2 years. Let me pick them again. Hopefully the Niners turn it around. In reality, does any of this crap really matter or anything? No, but it makes all of us weirdos feel better that we feel like we've had some mystical hand in the 49ers win. In this case, it's my 3 in a row streak taking Seattle at home and the Niners winning. But even though they were up 16-0, even though they were up 16-3 at the half, here's another sign that wasn't good. It would have been it was their second straight game going back to the Cardinal game where they had 16 offensive points in the first half and a 13-point lead at halftime. So if I'm one that believes in superstition, which I do, I believe in signs like this. And that became an uh-oh. And I guess at least for me and my warped mentality, it's what's going to win out? Me picking Seattle 3 straight times or the Niners breaking this or Seattle again overcoming 2 scores and the Niners having the same amount of offensive points. Remember, last week it was 23 points in the first half, 7 courtesy of that blocked field goal recovery and shut out in the second half. So was it going through my mind like, oh man, this, even though the numbers are different, right? 23-10 against Arizona, 16-3 against Seattle, it felt the same. The offensive dominance in the first half, the inability to get into the end zone more than once. And I think a lot of us started to feel really good since the Niners deferred. They got the ball to start the second half and went down the field for a touchdown, 23-3 after their first offensive drive. Now it's a game, probably the first time maybe since the Jets game. I don't recall how much they extended the lead there, but now they're at a 3-score lead. Now they're making it. Now they're doing what Kyle wants, right? They are not necessarily milking the clock because there's a whole lot of time left, but you go from 2 scores to 3 scores. Even a field goal there in a weird way would have been okay because then it would have been 19-3 and you're forcing Seattle to get 2 touchdowns and 2 2-point conversions, which is doable, but better than 13 points up, not as good as 20 points up. So we're feeling good. We're feeling good until special teams had to rear its ugly frigging head again. Kick return touchdown by Laviska Shenault. San Francisco had a player that had an opportunity to, I don't even want to say make a tackle because the player wasn't within arm's length of Shenault. Just got maybe faked out. He was playing well outside. Maybe he thought he had someone helping inside. There was no one there. Shenault takes it up and up the field down the left sideline for the touchdown. Kudos to Chris Conley, man. 32 years old. Tracked him down, swiped at the ankles around the 5, wasn't able to get him, but did not give up on the play. And I think Rocky Sin was the other in coverage, but Conley still having some wheels at 32, I believe 32 years old. But we're going to get into special teams. That's a separate thing, so I don't want to go off too much there. But now it's 23-10, and now it's oh shit time. Now it's here we go. Different song, same verse, different book, same story that's going to unfold here. So it's 23-10. The Niners get the ball back. They go 4 and out, 4 plays, 19 yards, punts it away to Seattle, who then promptly, good pump by Wishnowsky that gets downed at the Seattle 7. Seattle goes 13 plays, 94 yards, finishes it off with a Kenneth Walker touchdown from, I think, 2 yards out or 1 yard out on third down. Now it's 23-17, and now it's really oh shit time. Now momentum is a thing. It's not something you can grab. It's not something that's tangible like a laptop or a desk or a microphone, but in the same way, it's something you can feel, right? At the same breath, it is something that has a presence, especially when you're playing an away game. And especially in an environment like Seattle's Lumen Field, where they have the 12th man. And yes, Seattle or San Francisco fans travel well, and they traveled well again yesterday. Kudos. But you felt it. You felt it on TV. The fans there, the players there probably felt it. And San Francisco, now up by 6 points, gets the ball back and goes 3 and out. Another punt, but the defense stands strong, forces Seattle to punt. Now we're in a game of punts. Niners 3 plays and punts. Seattle 5 plays and punts. San Francisco gets a halfway decent drive together, 6 plays for 48 yards, has to punt again, gets it, downs it at the Seattle 3. And here's where here's where another of the young players step up to make a big play. And it's Renardo Green stepping in front of an in-breaking pattern, covering DK Metcalf, intercepts Geno Smith, and takes it inside the 20, which leads to a 49er touchdown. So now let's discuss the young players stepping up. And early on, we mentioned it was rookie safety Malik Mustafa with an interception on Seattle's first drive. Geno sailing the pass to Tyler Lockett. Green again in coverage. Mustafa leaves with the lower ankle sprain, so they were left with Jair Brown, George Odom, and I believe Jalen Mahoney was not only elevated from the practice squad, but I believe he was activated as the fourth safety. I'm not sure if he got any snaps, and he might not even have been activated. Don't quote me on that. Green gets this interception so big because the team's Seattle has scored 14 unanswered at this point. Obviously, 7 on special teams, 7 on a really good drive after they forced the Niners to punt. Starting Seattle back deep again. It's not only getting the interception, which is huge, but it's where on the field they got the interception. They got it in plus territory. They took it. Green takes it into the red zone, and the Niners, first time today, cash in on a red zone touchdown to make it 29-14. That touchdown courtesy of George Kittle. Another play. Let's just stick with, this is out of order, I apologize, but let's just stick with the young players again. The kick return fumble before Laviska Shenault breaks one to make it 23-10. He fumbled a kick return in the first half. It was forced by Darrell Luter, more specifically Darrell Luter's thigh and knee, and recovered by Tatum Bethune, rookie linebacker out of Florida State, giving the Niners good field position. And I believe leading to another, might have been, it was a field goal on that drive. And then at the end of the game, when they're still again up 5, Isaac Guerendo, rookie running back, breaks a 76-yard run inside the 10 of Seattle, which is then sealed by Kyle Juszczyk 2 plays later to get the Niners up by 12, and that's the difference, 36-24. Now, one interesting thing about, Guerendo, 4.33 guy, right? Big back, but fastest 40 at the NFL Combine this past year. But he wound up getting run down by cornerback Devin Witherspoon, who's also fast. He's a 4.39 guy. They are, as Kyle likes to say, an eyelash, between each other speed-wise. But Witherspoon was a few yards back when Guerendo broke the line and got down the sideline, and he was able to catch up to him and trip him up. And, Guerendo kind of goes down at the 6 or the 5, wherever it was. So Yes, does he have home run speed? But I was surprised he got caught from behind and didn't take it into the end zone. We're going to get more toward the end of the podcast about what would have happened if he didn't score or if Juice didn't score. Would have been very interesting. In terms of Guerrero, though, I know it's his sixth game. It's only his fourth or fifth game actually carrying the ball. And he had 10 rushes today, and that was purely by necessity since Mason got hurt. Young player, right? This is Mason's third year on the team, but you can see he's less decisive than Mason. For as fast of a back as he has, I think, much slower acceleration to and through the hole. Mason runs like someone with his hair on fire, like a wild animal. He's exploding into the hole. He's exploding into contact, throwing his body, fighting for every yard. And that's what he actually, wound up doing. When he wound up hurting his shoulder, it was half him getting tackled, but also kind of throwing his body weight forward onto his left shoulder. And hopefully it's nothing that'll keep him out of the Chief game in what? I'm recording this on Friday, 9 days from now. And he tried to come back, came back from one play, ran it for a nice sweep for 8 yards and had to come out for the rest of the game. But for someone who is less decisive than Mason, than a more veteran running back for sure, the only way that Guerrero is going to understand when to hit the hole, when to push it, inside, outside, or bounce is through getting snaps. So getting 10 carries this game was fantastic. Like any job in life, the only way you're going to get better is through repetition, right? Through actually doing the job. You can only learn so much by watching. And for him to have his exclamation point at the end with that 76-yard run was great, because that was another oh shit moment for us, getting the ball back that late with Seattle, under 2 minutes, with Seattle having 3 timeouts, which we'll get into in a little bit. So now let's go to the defense. And Nick Sorensen, I think, drew up a really good script, a really good first half, a really good first 3 quarters. What I did notice, though, the first drive Seattle had, and it was a drive that got them down the field, and obviously Mustafa with that interception at the 3, all 4-man rushes. All 4-man rushes. There might have been a time where he sent a safety or a cornerback on a blitz, but he also promptly dropped a lineman out. So it's still a 4-man rush. I don't count that as a blitz. A blitz is sending more than 4 people at the quarterback. All game, there might have been 3 or 4 5-man blitzes. Now, this may have been by design, given how pass happy Seattle was going into the game. Geno Smith leading the NFL in passing yards. The absolute non-commitment, or flat out abandoning the run against the Giants, having about 10 carries thereabouts. And Seattle made a point in the first quarter to run the ball. They weren't running it extraordinarily well, but they were making a point to stay balanced, or as balanced as this Seahawk offense possibly could be. And defensively, the design might have been, all right, you're going to run at times, and we're going to hope that our front 4 and our linebackers can stop it, which they did. But Geno Smith is not a very good quarterback. He can throw for all the yards he wants. He can have a good start to a season. He can, be a backup, a QB2 on your fantasy team that you can start in a pinch against a not so great defense. And he could play admirably for you. But over the course of 17 games, he is not a very good quarterback. And he has not been a very good quarterback against San Francisco the last 5 times they've played. In one of the games the past 3 years, it was Drew Lock, who the Niners beat, but actually had a better game in a lot of respects than Geno Smith's had in the past previously. But this is a team in Seattle with its weapons at receiver. Noah Fant, average to slightly above average tight end. San Francisco can play their bend but don't break, rush with 4. And it's not even rush. It's like, and we're going to get into pressures in a little bit. It's like, I'm going to bring 4 defensive linemen at your 5 offensive linemen. because I hesitate to call it a rush, especially when you notch one sack all game on Geno Smith for what he had like 52 dropbacks, like a crazy number of pass attempts. But the Niners can get away with that against a team like this. They can't get away with it against a team that's quarterbacked like with a Matthew Stafford, even when they didn't have any weapons. Although it's so inexcusable they lost that game, Matthew Stafford is good enough and savvy enough and a borderline or Hall of Fame quarterback that he will find holes in the zone if you don't get to him. Kyler Murray, even though he was only a shade over 50% last week, completion percentage, will find open people and will take off if nothing's there. But against a Geno Smith, a Will Levis, maybe a Baker Mayfield to a certain extent, whoever's the backup quarterback now in New Orleans. I think it's Spencer Rattler is going to play. Anybody on Miami that's not Tua, like Deshaun Watson, there are probably 10 or so quarterbacks that playing bend but don't break will work because you're just waiting for those quarterbacks to get impatient and do something stupid or make a bad play, take a bad sack, whatever it may be. But when you're playing top 10 quarterbacks, they are going to make you pay if you can't get there, San Francisco, and they couldn't get there against Geno, even though we're going to talk about pressures now. And San Francisco had 31 pressures. Am I counting this right? So 14 by Bosa, 6 by Leonard Floyd, 4 by Malik Collins, 3 by Sam Okawanu, 2 each by Evan Anderson and Kevin Givens. Bosa had 6 pressures in the first half, 8 in the second half, so 14 for the game. And since he's come into the league in 2019, he's had 7 games with 10 or more pressures. No other player in the NFL has more than 4. When you read the stats like that, they seem impressive. When you watched the game, though, did you really get a feel like Geno Smith was under duress? That Geno Smith was really being harassed all that much? And we're going to get into my thoughts on that in a second. But let's just go to Bosa, for a second. He hasn't had much help since he's been here. He's had the ghost or the walking corpse of Dee Ford in 2019, but some interior help with DeForest Buckner and Eric Armstead. They tried, Drake Jackson. They tried to bring in Chase Young last year. They have Leonard Floyd this year, who, looks like he may be breaking his streak of 3 or 4 straight years with 9 sacks the way he's going. And while Nick Bosa is worth the money he got paid, and while he is a consistent Pro Bowl player, All-Pro player, Defensive Player of the Year for his, whatever it was, 17, 18 sack performance, he is someone that offensive coordinators need to game plan for, certainly. But he is not a game wrecker. And I think those two things are mutually exclusive. And I think it's okay, 49er fans, to be honest about this. And if it's because there isn't a viable rush option on the other end, okay. If it's because they don't blitz, sending 5 or 6 and maybe giving Bosa a bit more of a chance to beat his one-on-one, depending on where the blitz is coming from, of course. It always seemed, more often than not, and if there was 52 dropbacks by Geno or passes, probably 45 of them or more were 4-man rushes. You're asking so much more from your front 4 than if you would take the Brian Flores approach and just blitz a little bit more. I don't have the blitz percentage for this game. I want to find it maybe for the next podcast, whatever it's going to be next week, whether early or mid next week, because I'm curious myself, because they dialed it up to 33% against New England. And you would think that's the ultimate team you would play conservative against because they can't hurt you at all offensively. But you guys watched it just like I did. Did it feel like the Niners D-line was in control? Did it feel like Geno Smith was harassed into his interceptions? His 2 picks were not the force of pressure. He made bad reads and bad throws. And yeah, this 31 pressures, sounds great, but Pressures to me are an odd stat. I mean, it's really loosely defined as a defender in the vicinity of the quarterback that forces the quarterback off his spot to a degree. Now, of course, you had that one play late in the game where Bosa rushed inside the right tackle, got to Geno. You saw him swipe at the ball. Geno almost fumbled. Now, that's a legit pressure. If all pressures were something like that, not the knocking at the ball, that's an added step, right? But actually, like being near the hip of the quarterback versus, rushing to the outside, you're forming that pocket and causing the quarterback to step up because of that outside. That's a pressure. And whoever's the closest in proximity to that quarterback gets credited with the pressure. It's a pressure, but it's not stressing the quarterback, right? You're getting him off his platform, off his spot, back, forward, left, right. Might only be by a step, but it did not feel like when you say, 31 pressures, we all watched it, right? There's a difference between numbers on a page and reading a stat and the eyeball test and what it feels like in real time. And it didn't feel like the Niners pass defense really had anything to do with Geno Smith's performance. It was Geno being Geno against the 49ers. And the only sack of the game. Now, you would say, like, oh my gosh, if I had asked someone who didn't watch the game, the Niners had 31 pressures on Geno Smith. How many sacks do you think they would have? And maybe someone crazy may say, 31 pressures. 10 sacks. Or someone reasonable may say, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5. One sack, and it came with 40 seconds left in the game near midfield when Sam Okwuonu, the pocket actually did collapse there, and he was able to get Geno. One sack all game against a not great offensive line, against a team that threw it 52 times. This is why when you have upcoming games against Mahomes, I know they've owned Dallas and Dak and other teams that can throw, you cannot rely on a 4-man rush that's not doing the job. 31 pressures aside, great number. Looks good on my piece of paper that I have pulled up split screen here. Not cutting it, and will not cut it against the better quarterbacks in the league, and will certainly not for 4 quarters. That's the key thing here, right? You can hold, and Geno Smith he was a Pro Bowler one year, right? A couple of years ago. You can hold an offense like this down quarter, a half, 3 quarters. Eventually, they're going to break through. It happens all the time to this defense, and it happens a lot to mainly any defense, especially if you're up by 2 scores. You're going to play softer and not allow a quick strike behind you. But you can't do it again. You cannot play this way against good quarterbacks, and certainly not against top 10 quarterbacks. Now, the run defense, really good. 20 rushes for 52 yards and 1 touchdown, courtesy of Kenneth Walker, which is that, and the lead forced Geno to throw it 52 times. They abandoned the run basically in the second half. They averaged 2.5 yards per rush. 2 big backs in Walker and Charbonnet. You thought that they would want to be more balanced, but again, this is a game where the flow of the game, the score of the game, the feel of the game dictated what Seattle had to do. They, and I forget their offensive coordinator's name, former offensive coordinator for the Washington Huskies, right? So he stayed home. Felt like they had a better chance of moving the ball through the air. And when you have Metcalf and Jackson Smith and Jigba and Tyler Lockett and Noah Fant, and you could send some running backs out of the backfield, it makes sense. Plus, when you're down 16, 13, 20, you're probably going to come back through the air, knowing that, your defense has been having a difficult time consistently stopping the 49ers offense. They did a better job in the second half, getting 2 straight punts to get back within 6. But overall, not great. And it was a game, at least offensively, where the Niners, 16 in the first half, 20 in the second half. That's balance, but that's also what you want to see. Stressing the other team by continuing to score, but not doing stupid stuff or not getting away from your offense to do it. Now, I mentioned, holding the Seahawks. Let's stay with Sorensen in the defense, because they're always he's always going to be the easy scapegoat. Even in a win, you could say, how could you let him back? And how could it be 23-17? Oh my God. I mean, there was a special teams touchdown, that kick return in there also, but everyone that was getting tight watching the game, were we tight more about the offense not being able to score again this game? Or were we more tight about the defense not being able to stop Seattle anymore this game? And I was more tight about the defense. I think I said out loud, the defense is going to lose this fucking game for them. Because at least we saw with the Niners offense that they scored to start the third quarter. So you have that proof that this isn't the Cardinals game last week. They've scored in the second half, and they could probably score again. Hell, you're up 23-17. You just need a field goal to make it a 2-score game, to make it a 9-point lead, right? And you have a healthy field goal kicker here until their very, very last drive where Matthew Wright went out. We're going to get to that. So you had the ability to get that lead to a 2-score game when you needed to, or if you needed to. But the first half, Sorensen and the players, give him some credit. 133 total yards in the first half, 2 turnovers, 1 pick and the kick return fumble, 6 first downs, and Seattle had 7 fewer minutes of time of possession. All right, halftime. Now through 3 quarters, 227 yards, still 2 turnovers, 12 first downs, and now negative 10 minutes of time of possession. So they gained, 94 yards of offense in the third quarter, didn't turn the ball over, 6 more. They doubled their first downs from the first half, but the Niners were able, not that they were able to hold the ball all that much more, but the Niners extended their time of possession lead. And then the fourth quarter became the quarter again. In the fourth quarter alone, 131 total yards by the Seahawks. They did have the Geno Smith interception, and they did have 10 first downs in the quarter, whereas they had 12 first downs through the first 3 quarters. This is the 49ers' MO this year, and over a lot of, not the majority, but a lot of big games the past couple years, is the letting that team back into it, defense wearing down, regardless of who the offensive opponent is. But they did do enough. I'm not going to say to close the door, we're going to get there, but to get the win. So overall, I think the Seahawks had 358 total yards, 22 first downs. They still lost the time of possession. They lost time of possession by about 6 minutes. 3 turnovers in the hole. You're not gonna win like that at all. And the Niners still needed. The Niners had, think about this too. The Niners had a 3 turnover advantage going into their last drive when they were up 29-24 with 1:40 something to go, needing to get a first down to kill the clock. 1-score game against Seattle. They were +3 in the turnover turnover battle. And that game was still that close with less than 2 minutes to go. Sometimes you have to be lucky, right? And that Guerendo run, while it was skillful, there was some a hole opened up and he just kind of exploded to it involved. Let's talk about offense. The offense played to its old identity, which it needs to, not just against Seattle, but against every team, unless there's a game where they get down big. If you get down big early, you can still run the ball and mix stuff in. If you're down big late, then you're going to have to be throw. But they got back to who they are in terms of run pass distribution. Let's at least start with the pass. Brock was 18 of 28 for 255 and 3 touchdowns, added 19 yards on the ground with 4 rushes. And he was decisive, especially that first drive when they were backed up inside their own 5, squirting up the middle for 4 or 5 yards. There wasn't many of that Brock run around trying to make something happen. I know there was one where he did try that, and it was originally called a completion to Jennings, and then replay overturned it. But when he decided that there was nothing there, he tucked it down and went. That's what we want to see. We don't need Brock from Iowa State trying to do too much. We need Brock orchestrating the offense so that they're consistently staying ahead of the sticks. Debo, big game on only 3 receptions for 102, including that bomb from Purdy for a touchdown. Kittle, 5 for 58 and 2 scores. And get this, guys, 5 checkdowns, 2 running backs, 3 to Juice, 1 each to Jordan Mason and Patrick Taylor. Taking what the defense gives. Nothing wrong with that. Did they push the ball downfield? Yes. And it was really, when you think about it, really only, 2 plays, I would say. That the deep one to Debo, that was a bit underthrown, that Debo had to come back for, jumped in front of the defender and took to the house. If you're the defender there, forget about breaking up the play, just make the tackle. It's like what I'm telling my kids in flag, because we don't have a lot of height. If someone throws a ball up deep or even short and it's high, if you're not tall enough to knock the ball out of the kid's hands and they're going up for it, just pull the flag. Just make sure that the ball's caught there and they're done. They're tackled, so to speak. That's all that the Seahawks defensive back had to do there. They would have been a nice 30-ish yard gain. But there's some run after the catch, right? And that's the best kind of run after the catch you want, when there was nobody else in the secondary near you, except, Debo, you almost got caught by linebacker Boye Mafe. I mean, come on, man. You're faster than a linebacker. What's going on there? But 5 checkdowns, thumbs up. Decisive running, thumbs up. Part of the offense that seems insignificant. It seems small, but again, these are crucial things when it's a 3rd down and 2 or 3 or 4 that you can dump it off or pick up those 4 yards on the ground, converting first downs, staying ahead of the sticks. And talking about first downs, the Seahawks were nearly 50%. They were in the 40s on 3rd down conversion. Not great. And when you add their 2 of 3 on 4th downs, they were nearly 50% on 3rd and 4th down conversions against San Francisco. So while everything felt better outside of when it was 23-17 and Seattle was clawing back, the Niners were still having a difficult time at times getting Seattle off the field. And offensively, they were under 50% as well for 3rd down conversions. Running the ball. This is where they flipped the script from last week, and this is where they need to be, guys. I said it, and I know a lot of you guys know it, but I'm just going to keep saying it. 28 passes for Brock, 33 rushes for the team for 228 and a touchdown. So Jordan Mason, before he got hurt, 9 for 73. That's 8 yards a tote. Isaac Grendo, 10 for 99. That's almost 10 yards a carry. Obviously, he had the big 76-yard run in there. Patrick Taylor, 5 for 16. Debo, 4 for 15. And Juice, essentially the game clinching touchdown, 1 for 6 and a touchdown. If you let's play the game of the whole. If you take the big run away by Gruendo, he's 9 for 23. That's less than 2 yards a carry. That's, again, the hesitance, still being new to the team, new to the system, new to the team. He is a rookie, being hesitant, right? Not making decisive cuts, not being like that one cut, hit the hole and go running back. But we'll all take a crappy stat line and a big run to essentially ice the game. But Gruendo is a work in progress. Nobody should get put under a spell by Gruendo's big run to say that he's arrived. He has not arrived, guys. You or I, if we understand like blocking assignments and running through holes, would have made that run. Not as far, because Devin Witherspoon would have tracked our asses down a lot sooner, but Gruendo didn't do anything special there. It wasn't 2 or 3 cuts. He didn't break a tackle, and he certainly didn't break a tackle at the end when Witherspoon swiped at his ankle and looked like he was like, all right, I'd rather just go down than risk. I don't know what he was going to risk inside the 10. And what was weird about before Gruendo getting that carry at crunch time, right? Less than 2 minutes to go, 5-point game, crunch time. Patrick Taylor was in more in the 4th quarter than Gruendo was for at least the stretch of the latter part of the 4th quarter, the latter half of the 4th quarter, let's say. There's a good stretch where Gruendo wasn't in there. Maybe they're just giving, breathers and alternating series. I'm not sure, but didn't it feel like Taylor was more of the consistent presence in the fourth than Garendo was? And obviously Isaac made his presence felt on that big run. Now, I was tracking the run pass ratio throughout the game. In the first half, it's like, yeah, this is where you want to be. 14 passes for Brock, 18 runs. Through the third quarter, 23 passes for Brock, 25 runs. So now it's like, okay, now we're shrinking, right? Now you went from 4 more runs in the first half to now only 2 more runs in the third quarter. And there was a time in the fourth quarter where passes and runs were even. I remember seeing that on my phone going, it, it, that had nothing to do with the kick return touchdown, right? But that may have had something to do with the back-to-back punts and not staying ahead of the chains and maybe making seconds and third downs more difficult than they needed to be. As it ended, so the Niners essentially got 3 more runs before the game-clinching touchdown by Juszczyk. 28 passes by Brock, 30 runs for the Niners. Again, those 3 runs at that last drive was Garendo's 76-yard run. Then Garendo ran it for a -1 yard, and Juszczyk took it in for 6 yards on that fullback dive. Kyle had to spread the running back touches around because of injury, because Mason could not go throughout the second half. So I'm not going to give him credit for, Garendo getting 10 carries, Taylor getting 5, Debo getting 4. Debo was always going to get his 4, right? He was always. But the fact that Garendo and Taylor combined for 15, I can't give Kyle credit. The injury forced his hand. But can he learn from this? Can he look at the tape and go, okay, I've got 2 other running backs on my roster, obviously, besides Mason, that can tote the rock, that I can give the ball to. Now, Taylor's not a burner. I looked up his NFL draft profile. He's a big back. He's a power back. I think he ran like a 4.67 at the combine. I ran faster than that in high school. Granted, I was 135 pounds. So he's not going to break anything away. But you saw when Taylor was running, right? He had both hands on the ball. Like he didn't care. Like, give me my 4 or 5 yards or 3 yards. I'm just not going to cough it up. I'm technically the 5th running back on the depth chart. McCaffrey, Mason, Mitchell, who's done, Garendo, and then Taylor, right? 5th. He's like, I don't want to get cut. I'm getting my chances. Let me do something solid, but not spectacular with that. And if you're down to your 3rd, 4th, or 5th running back, right? Solid, but not spectacular is a great thing. They're very lucky that they have a borderline spectacular. I mean, he's, as of right now, leading the NFL in rushing, but that's only because he's had a half or more of a game than everybody else. But he's going to be in the top 5 in rushing by the end of this week in Jordan Mason. Niners really lucked out there. When you're a super duper backup, yeah, you want to make the splash plays, but if you want to stick on the roster, just don't fuck up. And Taylor didn't, had a reception, had 5 good carries, pass protection, he was pretty solid. But can this distribution, 9 for Mason, 10 for Garendo, 5 for Taylor, 4 for Debo, that right there is 28 carries. Can that be something now that Kyle proactively puts into the offense? That it's not completely, and I think now that you're week 7 and not week 2 or 3 where you didn't know what you had in Garendo and Patrick Taylor, I still don't understand. Like, this is his 4th year in the league. Yeah, he never had more than, I think, 25 or 30 carries per season in Green Bay, and he's a special teamer and a 3rd, 4th, 5th running back for a reason. But he's in the league. He can carry the ball. Do we see now maybe Mason 15 to 20, Garendo 5 to 10, Taylor 2 to 5? I know that's crazy. I know other teams do it, but was this game the litmus test or the prove it case that, I can get other running backs involved? I don't have to be forced. I don't know, but it was good to see. Special teams, guys, we got to talk about it. Start with Matthew Wright. Brought in 3 for 3 on field goals, 3 for 3 on extra points. Not a strong leg by any means. That first field goal that went up, it was like, oh, did you kick that with your left foot? Like what didn't accurate, which is great. You don't have to boom the Christ out of it, every time. Only I think got one of his kickoffs into the end zone. And that was an issue because, there's no kickoff return by Chenault if Moody's in and he's booming it out of the end zone. At the same time, there's no kick return fumble by Chenault if it's kicked into or out of the end zone. So not that it's a wash, but if Matthew Wright's okay and he, got hurt on that last or second to last drive, making a tackle, probably okay. Just probably, he's just not used to being tackled. He's not a big guy. But if he's going to remain the kicker, the 49ers kick return coverage is going to be constantly under the spotlight because he has trouble forget into the end zone. He has trouble getting it near the goal line or inside the 5. And special shout out to Jacob Cowing and Brian Schneider, special teams coordinator as a whole. Cowing slipping twice on his first punt return, which I think he returned for close to 10 yards, but returned it at, I think, like the 11 or 12, and then fielded the second punt that he fielded at the 6. Why? Like, Brian Schneider, I know you're not listening, but for fans out there, can someone explain to me why any punt returner in the league is fielding the ball inside the 10 or close to the 5-yard line? Isn't there a special teams rule inside the 10, let it go, get away from it? The way the Niners special teams goes, what do you have a better chance of? A shitty return, a touchback where it bounces into the end zone, a fair catch that's fumbled, or fielding it and fumbling it, not on a fair catch. Like, if Kyle keeps saying special teams may not win him a game, and you're fucking right, Kyle, you got a pump block or field goal block return for a touchdown last week, didn't win you the game. And you had a kick return for a touchdown this week that almost was the catalyst for you guys losing the game. But who is coaching punt returners on this goddamn team to actually field the ball inside the 10? That's gotta stop. That's not aggressive. It's stupid because most of the time these fieldings are fair catches. So you're saying, yeah, we'd rather fair catch it at the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or get the fuck away from it and hope it bounces into the end zone and we get it at the 20. Because what's the difference between if he's going to fair catch it at the 6 or if it bounces and dies at the 3 or 4? Is there a difference, really? Could bounce forward, could bounce upfield, get to the 10, 12, whatever it may be, bounce out of bounds, sideways, whatever. Because it's happened in probably more than half the games this year, I'm sick of seeing a goddamn punt returner, Juice included last week, fielding a ball near or inside the 10-yard line. Gotta stop. Gotta stop. All right, so the Niners got the win. Did they learn to close out a game? We're not going to say games plural because this was one game. Did the 49ers learn to close out a game? Here's my answer. Yes-ish and no-ish. Here's no, because up 29-17 after Kittle's second touchdown, Seattle, you're down 2 scores. The Seahawks get the ball with 6:14 left. Right now, they're in 4-down territory the rest of the way. And I think they definitely went for it on 4th and goal to score the touchdown. I'm not sure if they went for it on 4th down. Maybe they did once prior in the drive. But the Seahawks go 15 plays for 70 yards and convert a 4th and goal, that touchdown pass to Lockett, to make it 29-24. So the reason why I'm saying no is there was your drive, San Francisco, up 2 scores. Seattle getting the ball back. They're probably going to throw every drive and every play, and they probably did. And you couldn't close the deal. This was not the drive they got the sack on. It was the next drive, but could not close the deal. And I think you made all of us fans clench our toes and our sphincters for the remaining kickoff. which was returned by Patrick Taylor, right? I think to the 24. And I'm like, why are you returning? I think that play was a good play by the Seahawks special teams coach because they bounced it in that return area from the goal line to the 20. And I think once it hits the ground and happens, you have to return it. So even the Seahawks know, man, put it on the Niners special teams, punt return, kick return, whatever. Let them fuck it up. And Patrick Taylor did not get to the 30. They started at the 24. Crowds into it, high amount of energy. But the Niners, guys, the Niners D there, that drive, let's not forget. They had a chance to close the door and end the game that drive, and they did not. Seattle scores 29-24, a minute 44 left. Seattle with all 3 timeouts, and all of us are going, oh shit. They know San Francisco is going to run. We know San Francisco is going to run. Jordan Mason's out. It's Isaac Guerrero. Shit, he fumbled. He hasn't looked good so far, less than 3 yards a carry. Patrick Taylor's not that great. Guerrero fumbled against New England last week on a kick return. It's going to be a 3-and-out. And here's where I'm going to say, did they learn to close out with a yes-ish? Because the next offensive play, Guerrero goes 76 yards to set up Juice's touchdown. Now, I said before, and it wasn't, right? It wasn't an elaborate play. It wasn't Guerrero, breaking tackles, bouncing off people, making 2 guys miss in the hole. He hit the hole and ran straight. And he wasn't, as much as his speed was on display, didn't get into the end zone, right? Should have. 4.33 guy with a couple of yards on Devin Witherspoon did not get into the end zone. Witherspoon ran him down. So I'm going to give it a yes-ish because they scored a touchdown, right? First down was a 1-yard loss. Seattle uses a timeout. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Seattle used their first timeout because Guerrero stayed in bounds. They used their second timeout on Guerrero's next carry for -1 yard. And then Juice scores on, which was second down and goal from the 6 to make it a 12-point lead. How interesting wouldn't have been? And by interesting, I mean, I would have been drinking heavily at this time if Juice and the Niners don't score a touchdown and either they go for it on 4th down or kick a field goal. So let's set the stage. All right. They got in, which was great. So that's why this is a yes-ish, was able to close offensively. So it's second down at the 6, Juice scores. Say he picks up a yard or 2. Say now it's third down at the 4 or 5. Seattle snaps their last timeout. So now there's no timeouts remaining for Seattle. It's about a minute 15 on the clock, I think. Third down. They're going to run the ball again, right? There's no reason to pass it. So you run the ball again. Hopefully you score. Say you get another yard or 2. Say you get nothing. 4th down at the 4. Kyle's got 1 timeout left. He takes that clock all the way down. You snap a timeout. I think there'd be about 35 seconds left on the clock. 4th down and goal from the Seattle 4-yard line. You are up 5. What do? Do you kick the field goal and say, okay, we're up 8. If Seattle somehow scores with 35 seconds to go, mainly on a kick return, the worst we can do is tie? Or do you say, all right, 35 seconds left, let's go for it, and now you could pass. Now it doesn't matter. It could be a run, pass, whatever. Let's actually try to close it out, because if as long as we don't turn the ball over, Seattle's going to get the ball back inside their 5-yard line with about 30 seconds to go. Thank God we didn't need to see the choice that Kyle made, because let's be honest, if they kick the field goal and there's 32 seconds remaining and the Niners are kicking off, is anyone here confident that at the least the Seahawks aren't going to be able to take it back to maybe the 40? I think that would have sent all of us into an absolute tizzy. Interesting case study that never came to fruition, but that's why you get a yes-ish Kyle in the offense for did you learn to close, because that absolutely ended the game versus wondering, do they make it 8 points? Do they go for it, etc.? All right. So takeaways. I said this, I think, on the previous podcast, and I said it on another podcast that I was on. Now, that game going into it mathematically was not a must-win game for playoffs or the NFC West or anything like that. Like it literally wasn't. And if I'm being Captain Literal Man here, that's totally okay because I'm right. I am right. It wasn't. Being back 2.5 games against Seattle going into week 7 is much different than being back of Seattle 2.5 games if this was going into week 12 or 13 or 14. So timing of the loss or timing of when you're 2 games up or 2 games back matters. So from a playoff NFC West standpoint, and yes, they would have been 0-3 in the West and 0-4 in the conference. I get it. The Niners or Seattle or the Rams, if anybody comes out of the West, the only team that's going is going to be whoever wins the West. This is a bad division right now. I don't think any wild card team is going to get in. But that being said, they would have had, if the Niners had lost, they would have had Seattle again at home. They would have had the Rams at home at Arizona. Yes, they have the Chiefs and the Cowboys, and it would have optically looked bad. 2-4. You have the Chiefs coming in that you haven't beaten 5 times or whatever it is that Shanahan's been there 4 or 5 times. Then Dallas, then a bye, then it's McCaffrey coming back. Like it would have been more questions of, is the season over? And just based on the math, that's why in baseball, guys, there's magic numbers, right? The magic number to clinch a division when we're, in September is X number of games. Then the Seahawks weren't close to any sort of magic number. Would it have made it harder? Of course. But the season wouldn't have been over. But why this was a much needed win was for up here, guys. It was for the mentality. It was to prove to themselves that maybe we're not going to say we were as good as we think we are if I'm a Niner player, but to prove you can close, to prove that you can score in the second half. I mean, they've scored in the second half of basically, I think, every other game but the Cardinal game. To prove that when a team claws back, you can still push ahead and extend the lead. Hold a lead against a good offense, or at the very least, a good passing offense. These are things that confidence grows by doing, not by talking about it. Confidence isn't going to grow by saying, well, we did that in the past. We crawled out of a 2-4 hole, or weren't they 3-5 a couple years ago? And the Rams came into Santa Clara Monday night and they beat them and wound up going to the NFC Championship game only to lose at the Rams. In 2021. But you need to prove on the field all the things you're thinking up here, all the things that you think up here. And I'm sure for players, they don't say it to the media when they ask questions like, did you start to doubt that you were going to lose that game? Did you start to this, that? And they'll always say no, because you never want to be the athlete, the alpha male that's going to come out and say, yeah, I wasn't sure. It felt like it was slipping away. You're never going to say that. I guarantee you a lot of them think it. A lot of them feel it because you could see it by body language, right? When someone's like, holy shit, they're not thinking, oh, I'll get them next time. They're thinking like, oh, fuck, this is happening again. Like they're human. You could still be uber confident, but still also be very logical of shit. Anybody watch the Battlestar Galactica remake from the early 2000s, mid 2000s? All this has happened before and it'll happen again. Being up big, 2 scores has happened before. Rams, Cardinals, blew it. Sure, during the Cardinal game, they thought, oh, that Rams game was an isolated incident. It's not going to happen again. Happen again. Now is it a trend when it's twice in a row? And it felt like it was going to be 3 times when the Seahawks got it to 23-17. But good on Renardo Green for getting a pick. Good on the offense for finishing drives. Kittle on a touchdown. Good on Guerendo for finishing, a drive to really close out the game. And good on Sam Okinawa for getting the only sack with 40 seconds left in the game. Granted, the game was over anyway, but I guess he technically closed out the game with their only sack with about, 35 seconds to go. And, the takeaway wise, it's one game, and San Francisco has owned the Seahawks the last 6, and Geno in 5 of those 6. It's not a good matchup for whatever reason for Seattle. Seattle's identity for a long time, right, with Marshawn Lynch and other running backs was like pound the rock. And they weren't asking all that much of Russell Wilson to beat San Francisco or other teams. But when it was needed, Wilson and others were able to do it, but they were not a high-flying offense. It was good defense, ball control, run the ball, and make plays through the passing game and Russell Wilson's legs when needed. But the Geno Smith-led version of this team, offensively may have just as much, if not more talent. I mean, look at the position players. Like, you could throw Lockett and Smith and Jigba and DK Metcalf up against, Doug Baldwin and Javon Curse. Like, they never had Percy Harvin, for a hot second, who really didn't do anything other than kickoff returns. This is a talented or more talented offensive team, but this is a team that's also gotten away from their historic mentality of playing solid defense, solid running game, and complementary offensive football through the pass. They're relying on Geno Smith. If Geno Smith was a top 10 quarterback, you could rely on him. He's not. That's why the Seahawks are going to lose games like this, and that's why the Seahawks have lost 6 games like this straight against the 49ers. And the other takeaway is injuries. Let's see how Malik Mustafa is going to feel. Low ankle sprains, got 9 days to heal for the Chiefs game. Charvarius Ward was inactive. How is he doing? Jordan Mason with the shoulder. Is he going to have enough time to heal? And I'm surprised that they didn't shoot it up. And not like I'm saying, oh, you're sore. Shoot it up with that pain-killing thing. Anybody out there that watched the Netflix show Receiver, Devontae Adams, right? Severe shoulder injury during one game or shoulder injury, got shot up, felt fine. And then obviously the next couple of days didn't feel so good. So whatever they did or didn't do to Mason, he wasn't able to play through it. I'm not advocating playing through pain or taking drugs to do that. And it might not have mattered for him. Like, maybe it's different for a running back than a receiver, because it's going to be, you're constantly going to get pounded on that shoulder anyway. I don't know, but hopefully Mason's okay. We talked about Mustafa. Ward was close to a go, but they decided to sit him. Hopefully he should be healthy. McCaffrey's obviously not going to be back. Kalia Davis, great to see him back. And they obviously elevated Evan Anderson. Davis was activated and assigned to play almost immediately. You would think that after they activated him, that he would need a couple weeks to practice. And I guess last week was his practice week, but it was good to see him on the D line. And receiver wise, I don't think but maybe this 9 days will be enough to get Pearsall up and ready for the Chiefs. But I still think it makes most sense for him to practice and get reacclimated to the playbook after the bye week. So 4 weeks from now, Chiefs, Cowboys, bye, and then they're at Tampa Bay. So takeaway. This is the game. Now, listen, we all want to see a 30-3 game. We all want to see an absolute ass kicking to really pound the chest and prove that, this team is back. But even still, it's one game. But it's a game that resulted in a win, and they are 3-3 now atop the NFC West, and would have a share for the NFC West if Arizona wins at Green Bay. If not, obviously Seattle and San Fran are tied. The Niners have the tiebreaker, 3-3, and next week Seattle goes to Atlanta, which not an easy place to play, and a good team that Seattle can struggle with should the Niners stumble against the Chiefs. We will get there. Today is not the day for Chiefs breakdown. That is going to happen early and into next week. So hope you enjoyed the game. Again, made our toes, feet, and sphincters a lot tighter than it needed to be for a lot longer than it should have been in the second half. But the Niners get the win, pull away 2 scores, back where they rightfully belong, atop the NFC West, and 2 tough games coming up in Santa Clara that I don't want to say they're measuring stick games, but they're okay defense. Show me what you can do against an actual good team now. Not that Minnesota's not. Minnesota's 5-0, and they're 5-0 for a reason. They are a 5-0 team. They're a good team. But that's Sam Darnold. Now you got to show me. Well, you showed me against Geno, who, Mahomes, down a lot of weapons, but it's still Mahomes and Dak. You can split there, get to the bye 4-4. I think we'll feel pretty good, but I'm not picking anything. We're not dissecting anything until next week. Enjoy your weekend. Niner-free football. That means go out there, Apple pick, spend time with your friends, bike ride, family, kids, whatever it's going to be. It's a stress-free Sunday in Ninerland. Enjoy the victory. Whatever you guys do between now and we speak again, which may be Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, still undecided if there's going to be 1 or 2 podcasts next week leading up to the Chief game. I guess it really depends on what happens in Ninerland. But between now and then, enjoy it. Number 1, stay happy, healthy, and safe. Numbers 2, 3, and 4, and we will talk soon. Take care.